Have you ever had the strange feeling that something was wrong but couldn't explain what? As if your decisions weren't entirely yours, as if you were being guided by an invisible force. Perhaps you've done favors you didn't want to do, given in arguments where you were right, or trusted people who later showed a different face. If this has ever happened to you, and I know it hasn't, this video is for you. Because the brutal truth is you are being manipulated every day by people close to you, by the media, by leaders, by those who know how to operate the secret mechanisms of the human mind. And the worst part, you don't even realize it. You don't need hypnosis or cinematic mind control. The most effective manipulation is the one that makes you think you are in control, that the decision was yours, that the mistake was yours. Most people live like this, silently guided like pieces on a board game. They didn't even know they were playing. And when they try to react, they feel guilt, fear, doubt. They have been emotionally trained not to resist. And if you think this doesn't happen to you, stop right now, because that's exactly what a good manipulator wants you to think. In this video, I won't offer you comfort. I will give you tools. Because those who master the art of manipulation, as Machiavelli understood, don't need to shout or force. They simply observe, understand your weaknesses, and act. They know what drives you, and if you don't know, you will be driven. You will understand how people manipulate without you realizing it. You will recognize the patterns, the emotional tricks, the subtle games of control. You will identify your own vulnerabilities and learn how to shield your mind. Because true freedom isn't about doing what you want, but knowing why you want it. This video is a call, a summons for those who are tired of being used, for those who have suffered in silence, been blamed, silenced, conditioned. Here you will learn to step out of the role of puppet and take on the role of strategist. But I warn you, once you see, you won't be able to pretend you don't know anymore. So from now on, get ready, because what you are about to discover may completely change the way you see people and yourself. Have you ever noticed how certain people always seem to get what they want even when they don't deserve it? They don't shout, threaten, or beg. They persuade. They engage. They make you believe that giving in was your idea. This isn't charisma. It's technique. It's manipulation in its purest and most effective form. The manipulator doesn't act on impulse. They observe. They study your reactions, your weaknesses, your emotional needs. They notice when you need approval, when you fear rejection, when you feel guilty for saying no, and they use that. Manipulation begins before the first word. It starts with the silent reading of your body language, the tone of your voice, the pauses between sentences. Some use charm. They smile, compliment, present themselves as different from others. They make you feel seen, heard, special. But behind this veneer of kindness, there is calculation. They are creating an emotional debt in you. Because when someone is too good, your instinct pushes you to reciprocate, and that's when you start to give in. Others prefer guilt. They play the victim. They say they are overwhelmed, that no one understands them, that they only have you. Gradually, they put you in a position of emotional responsibility. And if you pull away or say no, they don't need to fight a sigh, a cutting remark. A look of sadness is enough. The subtle manipulator never needs to ask explicitly. They make you offer. And then there are those who use fear. They create catastrophic scenarios. If you do this, you'll end up alone. If you leave me, you'll never find someone like me again. They don't bind you with chains, but with ideas. They make you doubt your own ability to act, and so you remain trapped in your own volition. These strategies are not new. Niccolo Machiavelli in The Prince described with surgical coldness how manipulation can be used as a legitimate tool of power. He understood before anyone else that human beings are driven by interests and emotions, and those who grasp this can shape realities. As he said, men judge more by their eyes than by their hands because all can see but few can touch. Manipulation is precisely that, a visual and emotional spectacle set up to appear as reality. The manipulator creates a theater, and you, without realizing it, become part of the cast. They assign roles, write the script, and make you act. And the scariest part, you believe the plot is yours. But this theater only works because there is something within you that allows it a gap, an emotional weakness, an unacknowledged desire. This is where we enter the next part, the vulnerability that makes you a target. Because as long as you don't see what weakens you, you will continue to be manipulated and call it love, friendship, or respect. Let's expose this now. If this content resonates with you, click the subscribe button and join the channel. Thank you for your support. You are not manipulated because you are weak. You are manipulated because you are human. Because within every human being exists an emotional blind spot, an unresolved desire, a wound that hasn't healed, a silent need that acts as a gap. And that's where the manipulator comes in. They don't force. They listen. They perceive what you don't even see in yourself. Some of us carry an insatiable thirst for approval. From an early age, we are taught to please in order to deserve affection. We learn that love comes as a reward, not as a right. And so we begin to shape our attitudes to be accepted, valued, seen. This hole in the chest is an invitation for the manipulator. They give you crumbs of validation and you return blind loyalty. They say what you want to hear, and in exchange, you give up your autonomy. Others carry guilt as an invisible burden. They blame themselves for saying no, for prioritizing themselves, for setting boundaries. They were taught that thinking of oneself is selfish, that sacrificing oneself is a virtue. And that's why even when they feel something is wrong, they don't react because they think they are being too harsh, ungrateful, cold. The manipulator knows this guilt. They insinuate themselves as someone who only wants what's best for you. And with that, they begin to control your decisions through distorted morality. And there are still those who carry fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of being forgotten. Such people cling to any connection, even if toxic, out of dread of facing the void. The manipulator offers a false sense of security and then threatens to take it away. They make you feel that without them, you are nobody, and you believe it because your fear already told you that before they did. All these vulnerabilities have an origin. They don't arise from nowhere. They result from past experiences, silent traumas, inherited emotional conditioning. But as long as you don't confront these wounds, they remain open, and those who approach with a smile and ulterior motives know exactly where to touch. Machiavelli knew this. He understood that real control doesn't require force-only knowledge of human weaknesses. The nature of peoples is variable, he wrote, and it's easy to convince them of one thing but difficult to keep them in that conviction. The manipulator then does not convince. They occupy empty spaces. They settle where awareness is lacking. But there is a way out. You don't have to continue being emotionally predictable. You can learn to identify your own gaps and seal them. Only then will you stop being an easy target and start living with clarity. And that's exactly what we reveal in the next part. How to develop real emotional armor, creating true immunity against manipulation. Are you ready to stop being a hostage? Because the next step requires courage. Most want to stop being manipulated, but few are willing to pay the price of emotional freedom, brutal awareness. Because the truth sets you free, but first, it hurts. And the first wound you need to heal is the illusion that being good, empathetic, and understanding protects you. It doesn't protect you. In fact, it is these virtues, when not balanced with clarity, that make you an easy target. Developing emotional immunity isn't about becoming cold, but about becoming aware. It's about stopping automatic reactions to emotional triggers manipulators use against you. And the first step to that is recognizing your patterns. Stop and observe. What triggers make you give in? Is it fear of disappointing someone, anxiety of rejection, desire to keep peace at any cost? When you understand what drives you, you start to change the game. The second step is to cultivate what Machiavelli would call strategic detachment. You need to learn to emotionally distance yourself from situations without losing empathy. This means observing without immediately getting involved. It means not responding to compliments as if they were absolute truths. It means noticing when someone guides you through emotion and pausing to think before reacting. The manipulator relies on your emotional urgency. They need you to feel, not to think. So think. The third step is to become unpredictable. Manipulators work with predictability. They map your responses. They know if they cry, you will comfort them. If they compliment, you will let your guard down. If they pressure, you will give in. Your defense lies in breaking this pattern. Surprise them. Say no when they expect yes. Disappear when they expect insistence. Stay silent when they expect confrontation. This disarms the game and forces the other person to reveal true intentions. Another fundamental point is building a solid identity. The more you know who you are, the less you need to prove it. And the less you need to prove, the less power others have over you. Manipulators thrive on controlling the perception you have of yourself. They make you doubt, question, reevaluate, always in line with their narrative. When your internal vision is firm, external control loses strength. And don't be fooled, this is training. Emotional immunity doesn't come from a video. It comes from constant practice of self-observation, resisting urgency to please, standing by your decisions even when discomfort hangs in the air. It comes from remembering you owe nothing to anyone but your mental integrity. And staying sane in a world where everyone plays emotional games is itself an act of resistance. Machiavelli wrote that men must be pampered or destroyed, for if merely offended, they will take revenge. This thought is harsh, but reveals an uncomfortable truth. In the game of power, there is no neutrality. Either you dominate the emotional field, or you will be dominated by it. But what if the manipulator is at home, at work, in bed next to you? How to act when you can't simply cut ties? In the next part, we delve into the delicate realm of manipulation in close relationships and how to escape emotional control even when the manipulator is someone you love. And this may be the hardest test of your strength. If this resonates, you'll find value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Machiavelli's core ideas and gives tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. It's easy to talk about manipulation when the manipulator is a stranger. The hard part is facing this truth when the one who controls you is someone you love: a father, a mother, a partner, a boss who gave you a chance, a childhood friend. In these cases, manipulation is more subtle, more dangerous, more painful, because it comes disguised as affection, care, loyalty. And you, out of fear of losing the connection, remain trapped in an emotional web that consumes your energy, clarity, identity. The intimate manipulator doesn't need to lie. They distort. They don't need to shout. They insinuate. They don't stop you from choosing. They make you feel guilty for choosing differently. Over time, you stop questioning. You walk on eggshells. You avoid conflicts. You anticipate reactions to keep peace. Without realizing it, you become a hostage of an invisible prison built with bricks of emotion. In a romantic relationship, this can seem like affection. I only do this because I love you. Without you, my life has no meaning. But love that demands submission is not love, it's emotional blackmail. In family, it dresses as tradition. You can't do this to your mother. You owe us respect. But respect that comes from guilt is not respect, it's control. At work, it appears as loyalty. You have to be grateful. Who else will give you a chance like this? But gratitude used as debt is pure manipulation. Here's the central point. Proximity does not justify emotional violation. Love does not give the right to shape the other with fear or guilt. However, to break this cycle, you must first accept something uncomfortable. Not every relationship with affection is healthy. Not every person who loves you knows how to love freely. Not every bond that holds you is protecting you. Some just prevent you from growing. How to act? Start by setting boundaries clear. firm boundaries that don't need justification. A no said with serenity has more power than 1,000 arguments. Then comes exposure. Say what you see, feel, will no longer accept, not to convince the other, but to assert yourself before yourself. And finally, stand firm when reactions come, because they will. Insults, victimhood, punitive silence. The manipulator feeds on your hesitation. They test your limits, hoping you back down. Here's the reality few face. Sometimes loving someone means stepping away. It means exiting the dysfunctional dance and letting the other confront their emptiness. Because as long as you try to save, sustain, or explain, they won't change, and you will lose yourself. It's a difficult but necessary choice, because only those who free themselves from toxic bonds develop a new vision that sees beyond words, masks, superficial intentions. With this vision, we enter the next stage: how to apply Machiavelli's strategic thinking in modern life to keep the mind shielded in a world where everything and everyone tries to influence you. The time has come to turn the tables. Machiavelli never wrote to please. He didn't care about appearing ethical, virtuous, or well-intentioned. His commitment was to raw, unvarnished reality, the kind most prefer to ignore. If you want to survive psychologically today, you need to learn to think like he did, with brutal clarity, cold strategy, and emotional detachment. Because make no mistake, we live in an era of constant manipulation. Social media, marketing, politics, religion, relationships all operate on influence, image, narrative. Those who don't understand this are swallowed by it. Machiavelli saw humans as predictable, driven by interests and emotions. He asserted those who understand these mechanisms hold power. He said, "Men generally judge more by their eyes than by their hands. Everyone can see, but few can touch." In other words, perception is worth more than truth. And that's how the game works today. Whoever controls the narrative controls decisions. Whoever controls the image controls influence. And whoever understands psychological mechanisms controls others' behavior without raising their voice. Practically, this means you must stop living on emotional autopilot. Machiavelli did not believe in universal morality. He believed in context. What works for one may be a weakness for another. What seems noble in theory can be strategic suicide in reality. Kindness without discernment is foolishness. Honesty without timing is self-sabotage. Limitless altruism is servitude. If you want to be free, you must learn to play the game and play it well. This starts with observation. Learn to read people as Machiavelli read nobles, not by what they say, but by what they do when no one is watching. Evaluate behavior, not promises. Analyze patterns, not excuses. Trust less in words and more in hidden interests. Above all, do not react, anticipate. The manipulator acts strategically. Your defense is to always be one step ahead. Then apply silence as a weapon. One of the biggest mistakes is excessive emotional exposure. People show too much, talk too much, explain too much. The Machiavellian knows silence confuses, commands respect, and disrupts the manipulator's rhythm. When you do not react as expected, the game loses its script, and in that void, you gain control. Another essential application is mastering ambiguity. Machiavelli taught that to maintain power, one must appear virtuous without necessarily being so. In the modern world, this means adapting your language, posture, and presence according to environment without losing your essence. You do not need to reveal yourself completely, only enough to control perception. The rest you keep to yourself, because real power is what is not displayed. Most importantly, take responsibility for your emotional state. The manipulator feeds on your instability. They need you to doubt, fear, and hesitate. When you know yourself, regulate yourself, and remain steadfast under pressure, you become impenetrable. Machiavelli would write, "The prudent man should follow the paths beaten by the great and imitate those who have been excellent, so that even if he does not reach their level, he may come close. In other words, use the wisdom of those who mastered the game to stop being a pawn in it. Now that you understand manipulation and how to strategically protect yourself, one question remains: what to do with this knowledge? How to transform it into practical strength, a new way of existing immune to external influence. This is what we explore in the final part: how to take control of your mind and never be manipulated again. Are you ready to cut the last invisible strings that control you? Then, continue. We have reached the most important and perhaps hardest point to accept. As long as you don't take full control of your mind, someone else will do it for you. And it doesn't have to be a Machiavellian villain, a caricatured manipulative figure. Sometimes it's someone smiling next to you. Sometimes a phrase you heard as a child, still carried without question. Sometimes society itself shapes you from an early age to obey, yield, and remain silent. The manipulation affecting you is not just in others' words. It's in thoughts you never learned to question. It's in emotions treated as absolute truths. It's in decisions you call choices, but that were induced by fear, guilt, and need for acceptance. Freedom begins when you stop calling free will what is actually disguised conditioning. But this freedom comes at a cost. It requires breaking the illusion that everyone has good intentions. It demands dismantling the image you've built of yourself as always kind, understanding, and available. It requires tolerating discomfort from setting boundaries, the silence after a no, the loneliness of stepping away from harmful dynamics that seemed part of your identity. You will no longer be manipulated when you understand you don't need acceptance, when fear of displeasing no longer controls you, when your clarity surpasses your neediness, and when you finally look into the eyes of those who tried to control you and calmly say, "No more." What you do with this knowledge depends only on you. You can return to your life and forget everything. Continue playing the game without knowing you are being played. Or you can start today to train your mind to observe, analyze, resist, and rebuild. You can become someone who does not bend to emotional blackmail, who sees through masks, who walks firmly, even when everyone around is going in circles. Comment below. At what moment did you realize you were being manipulated? What was the click that made you see? Or are you still caught in an emotional game and want help to get out? Speak up, because verbalizing is the first step to breaking the cycle. If this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Watch the next one. It is just as important, perhaps more. Knowledge is a ladder, and each step takes you farther from darkness. So keep climbing, because the truth not only sets you free, it transforms. See you there.